Hey, Colin. Morning.
Hey, what's up?
I'm good. I'm good. How's it going? Nice black.
Oh, thank you. Black and red. I like that. It's the colors of wine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wine red. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
how you been?
So, I'm sorry. Lag. Okay, can you say something? Oh,
Yeah, can
okay.
you hear
You're
me?
moving again. Yeah, I'm good.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think
There's a lag though.
there's a lag on your video. Did you give a
Yeah.
restart?
Yeah, I did. I did. I think maybe, a bunch of stuff are still booting up. Maybe that's why. Uh, but you close a couple of these programs to boom. All right. Video check, audio check, lip sync check. Uh, uh, it-
Uh, do it again.
testing. 1, 2, 3. We're talking about LinkedIn office hours. I think I think it's still lagging, but I mean, what else can we do, right? It's not terrible where I can't understand, what you're saying.
I think it's gotten a little bit better since you started. I don't know if you're had the opportunity to close other things or what.
I have. Let me close Slack as well. Slack is pretty heavy.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So it's good to see you again. It's good to
Um,
have another discussion
it's it's
around.
it's it's too lagging. It's too lagging.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Let me see.
It's just enough off that it's hard to uh, sync your mouth to the words.
Can I do? I don't know.
Maybe
Kick some
I, I,
devices
would-
off Wi-Fi.
I would suggest coming out and coming back in with the closed applications, so it starts a new connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Let me try that. We're back in on the stream.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Oh, okay. And then your video is a little blurry now. I don't know. Whatever.
I think if blurry's fine, the capture of your mouth with the audio is might not fix in post because they do. I look fine, and they're recording, I think, locally and bring it together. But if you're saying that you look laggy on your end, I'm nervous that in post your audio wouldn't sync up, and then that would be detrimental or annoying in the clips. But I think you're
now I
right.
see. Yeah, now I see why. Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cool. We're here. We're good to go.
yeah. So do you mind if we dive in?
Let's dive in.
All right, awesome. So I've been looking forward to this chat today. Well, last week we talked about just like personal branding. How do you determine or how do you find your personal brand? How do you stand out in 1.1 billion LinkedIn users? And this week we're gonna go from the aspect of you being a business owner and identifying your ideal customer profile. And then again, at the same time, if you're not a business owner and you're looking for a job, then it could apply as well. The ideal, job profile or the ideal employer profile, IEP. All right. Just whenever you hear ICP, just replace customer with E, and that's you. You're good. So like what we're gonna talk about today, I think is applicable, whether you're promoting your business or if you're looking for a job. And so I'd like to propose that if you want to redefine your ICP or refine your ICP, there are about 3 questions you want to ask. All right, 3 main things you want to look at and look for. And I'm actually happy that I dug into this topic because I've been hitting it on and off. Colin, we've had discussions about the ideal customer and as well as the customers that kind of are a headache that force us to bend backwards sometimes way too much and that frustrate us. But there are 3 questions that I think are really good questions to ask. Question number 1 when choosing your ideal customer profile is there a problem solution fit? So are they actively looking for what you offer? That's the first. If they're not looking for what you do, it doesn't make any sense. If you're a marketer and like you said last week, the lawyers that you were hitting up weren't necessarily caring that much about necessarily spending on marketing, or maybe some of the marketers that you reached out to in the beginning of your campaigns, they weren't a good fit. They didn't have a problem to fit to your solution. So that's for the first question. Second question to ask is there profitability and long-term value? Right? So will they drive sustainable growth? And what is going to be their lifetime value over the course of doing business with you? If your customer spends, I don't know, $1,000 US or 150,000 Jamaican dollars, because the exchange rate still needs to be adjusted, right? Is $1 to 150, which is like nuts. But if your customer pays that amount, for example, every 3 months, then that's what, $4,000 per year. Is my math right, Colin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like $4,000 every 3 months. So that's like $4,000 per year. Then but also you got to consider like how long does it take to bring your customer from first contact to complete solution. That's the other thing, because there's some services that it's a one-time fix. For example, building your website, as opposed to website maintenance. That's ongoing value. And so that's something to consider. Is there a long-term value and profitability, or is it kind of a shotgun, one pop sniper rifle, one pop, boom, done? All right, never don't see you again until maybe you have the next issue. But even if that's the case, what is that value that you would I guess gain from that customer monetarily? And it's not good. I don't think it's good to put a dollar value on people because people are priceless, right? I don't think it's good to. But when it comes to doing business, it's kind of good to know like how much income could possibly come from each customer, right? Before you even engage them. Mhm. And then the third question is ease of access and engagement. Right? Can you reach and convert them efficiently? Are they active on the platforms where you market? Are you marketing on the platforms that they're hanging around? So those three questions, I think I should have asked these questions at the beginning of my business journey, but it's not too late. If you haven't asked those questions, this is a great chance to redefine your ICP by asking one, is there a problem solution fit? Two, what's the long term value? And three, is there some ease of access and engagement? Can you reach them and convert them efficiently? Right. But hey, I wanna throw it to you, Colin. When you think of an ICP, ideal customer profile, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind? I think most people skip this step and don't think about it enough because they don't think about the market conditions within the ICP. So let's just take a step back and let's just focus on, I think you laid out three things, but let's maybe just go one by one. If you want to maybe just reintroduce the first one, um, just to
Yeah.
break the fourth wall, because I'm trying to think of clips here.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. Problem solution fit. So the first
right. So
question to ask.
introduce the first one, and then let's just go through the first one. So it's more structured.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to refine or redefine your ideal customer profile, the first question I think we should ask is there a problem solution fit? But Colin, what comes to mind when you think of your ideal customer profile and the point of there being some kind of fit between your solution and the problem that they might be facing? Like, how do you make the connection, or what comes to mind? I'll leave it open for you.
Sure. So when I was starting out, you had mentioned I was going after lawyers. I'm a lawyer. I thought that I could offer marketing services to lawyers. But when you peel back what constitutes a lawyer, I thought my ideal customer profile was lawyers. But when I started getting into the networking, I realized that lawyers are personal injury attorneys, they're real estate attorneys, they're small business corporate lawyers. There's different categories of lawyers. Then within those categories, some work at big firms, some work at mid-sized firms, some are solo entrepreneurs building out their own firms. And so within that, there's different, they're all governed by certain regulations on what you can and can't say based off of being a lawyer. But then within that, they have firm guidelines. So some people can't promote certain things or they aren't allowed to spend extra money on marketing. My point is that when I started saying I'm going to go after lawyers, I didn't quite realize all the nuances of what the different variety of lawyers are and are not allowed to do. And within that, what the workflow management would be, even if it's all under one category of offering marketing services, because of the way that that market operates. So when I think and I hear people talk about their ideal customer profile, it's about niching down tremendously because within that, you could just work on, there's nothing wrong with an ICP of lawyers, but maybe saying I work for personal injury attorneys that are in this size firm in this market doing these types of marketing stuff, whether or not that might be like SEO or LinkedIn or, paid media. The reason I say this is because some lawyers aren't allowed to do paid media for whatever reasons, depending on like what firm that they work on. They don't let them do that. And that type of stuff I wasn't aware of when I started. So the problem was eventually when I was networking with them on LinkedIn and I got them on calls, I started realizing that they weren't a good ICP for me because, like you said, they weren't actively looking for what I had to offer. They weren't actively looking for marketing service. They were interested in having a conversation. Why not? listen to somebody who's talking about personal branding, social media. They had interest in wanting to learn, but they didn't have a pain that I was able to solve immediately. So because of that, I realized that I was spending a lot of time trying to sell to people who had no incentive to say yes in that moment. That was what would happen. I would get on calls and they would just, have interest to network me and get value, but weren't really looking for what I was doing. So I started realizing, okay, I need to pivot. This isn't a good ICP for me. I need to pivot towards a category where there are pain points that my product or service is going to solve immediately to be able to help with sales. So I pivoted to start going after startup CEOs that were building software, startup CEOs that were building software and wanted to grow on LinkedIn. I started getting niche and started targeting more and more niche and started having a much more productive conversations where it was easy to kind of understand the problem that those CEOs of startups who were interested in growing on LinkedIn were having, which was, they had marketing budgets, but they didn't have time. They needed operational support. And that was what I was providing. I not only had my time and my effort, but I was hiring people to help me with operations. So there was a clear market fit off of that ICP that made it easier to not only network, but position my offer as solving an immediate pain point. And I think people don't really understand because they think that they're going after one category and not reaching down within that, recognizing that there's different tactical sales strategies that would work better if you just kind of pivot your ICP. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So in other words, if you use a broad brush, then you're not going to get the finer details in a sense. So your target audience could just be this one little stroke along the canvas, but you're using such a broad brush, they're kind of lost in the picture pretty much. So you're saying if we can now niche down within our initial ideal customer profile, then we can find those that really have that fit with the aspect of the solution that actually they care about. So
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
just change the ICP because you switched from lawyers to startups owners.
You want to solve people's pain when it comes to products or services. You want to position the offer of whatever the product or service is at actually solving somebody's problem. That's the reason that they're going to pay you. So you might, a lot of times you've probably heard this where people say, who are you selling to and who could use this product or service? And they might say, everybody. Or, right, that might be one. They might say anybody could use this. Any modern professional could use this. And it's like, you're not wrong by saying that, but it's like, well, if you're trying to sell to all modern professionals, why are they going to choose? How are you going to solve their problem versus the competitors? Because it's a saturated market. Same thing by niching down from modern professionals to startup CEOs. You might say, I help startup CEOs, but a startup CEO for a consumer product is different than a startup CEO who's selling B2B software. That's different than a startup CEO that is having a chain of retail establishments with stores trying to get customers localized to the store.
Yeah.
All of them have different pain points that would require different management workflows if you're going to do service. Or even if you're going to have a product, like the workflow associated with how the product is going to solve the problem is going to be slightly different. So you can have a broad stroke and you might feel like you can. That's how I felt. I felt like I would say I could help any lawyer. If someone was a real estate attorney, I could help them, right? Especially with social media, LinkedIn, like I felt like I could. But what I realized that was when I went through all the effort to target open conversations, get them on networking calls and present my offer, I wasn't able to close because I wasn't targeted enough with solving an urgent problem that they had. So like one, no matter what it is, your ICP, you want to like niche down because it makes it easier to be more specific about like how your product or service helps them solve the problem that they're experiencing in the moment, you're able to personalize it better to say, hey, I like know what you're experiencing and I can help. But painting a broad stroke, in my case, I also was going after people who didn't have like an immediate problem. And like I didn't realize that at the time, but think about this from a lawyer's perspective. Most lawyers make their money based off of incoming cases, and cases take a long time to, you know, come about, right? If you're they could it could I mean everyone's varies, but it could be in a case that it's a retainer base and you're getting paid like recurringly if you're a corporate lawyer. But if you're a real estate lawyer, you're trying to potentially source deals and you get paid when things close. So you get like a more influx of money at a certain point in time versus a personal injury attorney who's always trying to market to try to get people who are injured to know who they are. So hopefully they could create inbound. So one's inbound, one's outreach, other one is like business attorneys. Yeah. All targeting different types of people, and all of their businesses work slightly differently. So when I don't know that, well, I mean, I understood that, but if you're trying to help all of them and you only have 30 minutes to extend an offer and try to close a deal, you better really understand how your service is going to help them in the short term. And for some of those lawyers, they didn't even care about the short term because they were good, right? They whatever they did was kind of working. They were just thinking about what else was available for them to do over the span of a couple of years. That's where I started realizing that they didn't have strong enough pain, like a startup CEO who is selling software and like needs people to use the software to fund like cash flow, right? A business operates a little bit differently if it's relying on how much money is coming in month to month, to know kind of how to manage cash flow and manage investments to grow over time. There's no right or wrong. And there's a lot of services that do still support lawyers. It's just, you understand different workflows that you're creating as a service provider that would service those people. And so for someone that was just getting started like me, I realized that it's a lot easier to sell to people who have pain and want the pain solved like right away, because then they have budgets to say, let's do this. And they're excited to move forward, hoping that our mutual work is going to amplify their business. And that's not really how lawyers think, because of the way that their market conditions operate. Like the way that they make money is how good the case is, not how good the marketing is.
Oh, I see.
It's a different business model, because it's like, well, if you want to make money at being a real estate attorney, it's more important to source the real estate option than how pretty the picture is and what the words are. Same thing with a personal injury. You need to kind of be strategic to be places where people are sustaining injuries and kind of understanding the market conditions associated where do people slip and fall. That's why a lot of personal injury attorneys use billboards, as if you ever seen that, where it's like injured, call.
Yeah, in Vegas.
Yeah, they're on TV.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to like the marketing strategy for a personal injury attorney is more about like, how do you have the broadest, like, because you want to be there when somebody has an accident to say, well, who do I call? And then they see that billboard, or, you know, it's not targeted. It's more broad by nature, because you don't know. It's hard to answer that question. How do you become top of mind for somebody at the moment they slip and fall?
Yeah, exactly. You don't DM everybody, hey, have you had a fall recently? Hey,
exactly.
if you broke your toe, I'm here.
And then some people might see the value in having a personal brand on LinkedIn, but it's hard to quantify that ROI, and also hard to say that that's an immediate pain. It might be good, but you're kind of compensating a lot by trying to oversell that you're going to be able to deliver those types of results just based off branding alone. Even though it might work. And some personal injury attorneys I've even seen, because I followed them through my outreach years, some of them are killing it on LinkedIn. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying that the people who are killing it are people who like internally want like the idea of personal branding. It's not like they're self-selecting to make LinkedIn their billboard.
Oh, okay. Awesome, awesome. Hey, Colin, as I was looking into this topic, I found some other abbreviations of ICP. Um, so we know it means ideal customer profile, but if you play around with it, you could possibly get and I don't know if you're listening. Are we live on LinkedIn, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're watching from LinkedIn and this sounds like any of your possible customers or prospects, then feel free to drop a comment, drop an LOL, comment under this clip when it's posted on the Pursue Networking page or in the group. But ICP, incessantly complaining prospect. The customer who always has just one more issue, right? Okay. All right. ICP, instant cash pipeline. Mhm. So that's the dream client who pays fast and like happy to pay and they're cash ready. I think that's like when there's a perfect fit. You're like, where have you been all my life? Right? And they're ready to pay. Instant cash pipeline. So here this one, ICP, intentionally clueless person, the one who asks for help but never follows advice. Oh my gosh. There's all right. So ICP, irrationally cheap penny pincher, wants premium service for exposure and good vibes. That should be ICPP. Okay. Um, all right. ICP, influencer circling parasite. Oh, that's mean. Only networks to name drop and ride coattails. Okay. And then ICP, incredible chaos producer. Can't follow instructions, then blames you when things go wrong. It's like you make a recommendation, they don't execute what they're paying you to tell them, and then they blame you when they don't see results. But I just thought I should just throw in that commercial break, and but back to our regularly scheduled programming. Hey, did you have a favorite one, Colin?
Uh,
Or have you ever been any of these? I'm sorry.
I don't have a favorite one. No. Some of them I feel like are, you know, I don't know. I think this kind of goes. I feel like this is more specific to individual people than broad categories. So it's like within an ICP, sure, a lot of these people will not be good. It's more about emotional intelligence and being able to kind of pinpoint identifying like who's a good client that's separate from the category of client that I would say.
Yeah. These are individual personas of I would say bad clients, or not so great or developing. Maybe they'll get to a point where they'll be the perfect ideal customer, right? But at this point in time, they are intentionally clueless and irrationally cheap. So let's move on from there. So Colin, the next point for choosing your ideal customer profile, I would say, is what is the long-term value or profitability of this customer over time? All right. What's the LTV? Yeah, how much money or value or how many referrals could this client possibly bring in over the next year? Is it 1 year that does it take 1 year to fulfill this customer satisfactorily? Does it take 5 years? Is it an ongoing service that you provide? And how likely are they to stay with you for the entire duration? Right? Do you think they're going to stay with you for 5 years, or do you think they're going to be with you for 1 year or 2 months? Right?
Let me throw that to you. What do you, when you get a client, what do you think? I feel like it's kind of impossible to know, but what's your framing of what you think?
Yeah. So I think sometimes I am vainly optimistic. It's just vain optimism. Yeah, they're gonna be with me for 3 months. I do my whole budget with my wife. Say, yeah, baby, I got a new customer. I got a new client. Yeah. And then next month, gone. like they've pulled the plug. They weren't my ideal customer profile. They were probably one of those other definitions, of ICP abbreviations. But I think there's also a couple of things that we could possibly do to influence that just a little bit. I would say customer service, I think, can sometimes influence how long a customer stays using your service or your product. For example, have you ever downloaded an app? You've had bugs, you sent in a request, you haven't gotten a response or heard anything for like a week, and you're like, and by the time it gets to the third day, you've just switched tools, switched platforms completely. You're like, I just can't be bothered. It's just much less painful to just switch to another platform. Sign up and everything, give them your email, get drafted into their email newsletter, right? It's easier to do that as opposed to when you send off a message and you're getting responses within minutes. I think that can lengthen how long, somebody spends with a company. All right, that's just an example when you're using software. So I think it's the same with even the service I provide. How much better can I be at checking in with my clients to say, are they satisfied with their marketing services? Are they satisfied with the frequency of posts? Are they satisfied with the intake of leads and the quality of leads that are coming in? And so I like to have like a weekly sync where we
Sure.
can manage expectations.
But your question to me, which is what I'm throwing to you, because I agree with all of that, was when you start with a client, do you assume that they're going to be with you for 5 years, 3 years? What's your?
I think at least 3 months, but that's me being vainly optimistic. If I'm not taking amazing care of the client, it's just vain optimism. It's probably not going to happen. Yeah. And then in other cases, I think it's a much better fit. And I think expectations are managed a lot better. So they don't feel like they have to end service or pull out because they know what to expect. I think when expectations are not met, people are quicker to be disappointed because they're expecting one thing, they're not getting it. So they think they're being ripped off or they're dissatisfied. But if we manage expectations, I think we could lengthen that lifetime customer value.
So you would say that you think that's interesting. You think that the number one thing about retaining clients for longer is manage expectations.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah. Do you have another perspective or anything you want to
I
add?
think that's one of them. I would actually say that it's a lot from what I have learned from my experience. A lot of it's contract price, manage expectations and contract price. Because I actually think I made this mistake, and I see a lot of people I think make that mistake too. Where how do you price your service? If you are, it's an interesting dilemma because most people value their time, and as they should. Um, and depending on how you deliver your service, that might be you or other people. So if you have a team of people and your time, you got to be premium. But at the same time, the more premium you go, the less retention you're going to get because it's expensive. So you have to really make sure that you're aligned with the company driving revenue in order to justify high prices. And that's where so it's kind of like the thing that I would say is, are you focused on your profitability or the business's profitability? Because to obtain lifetime value, you got to be overly focused on the business's profitability and not your own profitability. And I've
And
made this.
when you say you mean their business?
Yeah. Like if you're
Their,
serving another business, are they profitable or are you profitable? So, I mean, I have good examples of this. I met someone on LinkedIn and I got $100,000 year contract that I was able to sell, but nothing wrong with that. That's great. But I had a good year, but I didn't get a second year. Why? Because his business didn't work. No hard feelings. But at the end of the day, the business that he was investing in didn't work. It was in like the crypto, like adjacent to like a crypto service space. So he was making investments. I was doing the marketing. I was kind of helping with more like operations. great client for me. I was super profitable, but not so great for his business. So my lifetime value was still $100,000, but that was in 1 year. So at the end of the year, I was kind of stuck back to zero, which it's hard to get momentum in business. So, and it's also hard to plan year over year if things like that happen. I had another client that I charged about $4,500 to like $5,000 a month for operation services, systems management, LinkedIn, was helping them manage a few different LinkedIn accounts. So, I mean, that's close to $60,000 contract for the year. And that contract wound up extending too. So it's like they liked my service. They liked what we were doing together. But after the 18 months, understandably, they wanted to start bringing it in-house because we had the systems kind of set up. They understood what I was doing and how we were doing it. And also, like, their business was starting to pivot. The natural course of business is businesses change. So the market conditions of their business justified for a long time needing to kind of do marketing. But then they kind of went into a period where they felt like they needed to retool, like, businesses do. And while they retooled, they felt like they didn't really need to do marketing. And part of that retool was even trying to see how they could take some of the lessons from this marketing experience and, maybe do some things in-house that might actually amplify them. And I totally agreed with that methodology just based off the business. So my point is that I had great contracts, but the lifetime values were fine. Now I'll compare that to current clients that I'm still working with. One of my clients is $1,800 a month retainer, but at that price point, I'm over delivering value because it's not that profitable for me, but like we do the work and he's been with me for over 5 years. So the lifetime value keeps going up. Nice. And to be honest, once you start doing the math, 1,800 times 5 years and the untangibles, because you understand the software, these are the clients that I built the software with because I had them as clients to get market feedback on managing accounts. Things start compounding year over year over year. The complexity of the situation compounds because I'm going through so many iterations of working with them that I learned so much more about their business, that there's been a lot of things that have happened, that I've gotten bonuses, that I've gotten some stock in the companies, that I'm so involved in their workflows and there's so much historical information that I become more and more replaceable, and the lifetime value just keeps increasing.
Sorry, did you say replaceable or
replaceable? Irreplaceable.
Irreplaceable. Okay.
Irreplaceable. I mean, I manage the accounts. I created all the content. I have so much information about like how the systems work. For some of my clients, I literally built the systems, their websites. And so my point is that I learned this the hard way, that on the surface level, obviously the first two clients are desirable. And for 18 months, a year, that's what I wanted too. But when you take it a step back in the story of Pursue Networking, when people ask me, how did you build software? How did you do this? It's not the whale clients that are the answer to that. It's that I made really good relationships with people that I've helped build their business. Like their businesses are profitable. And it was never about, my business is not very profitable from them. I have to kind of figure out how to build software and transition the business model, which is what we're doing together, into like more of like an e-commerce store, because those businesses for me aren't that profitable, but I get the cash flow and it's super reliable. And it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, because at the same time, you never know, these businesses are starting to take off. So, and I like am so involved in it that it's like, who knows what, if another 3-4 years, we could be talking about like, not only how these businesses paid more than those other two clients, which is getting closer, but like, depending on how high that goes, I might get payouts that were unexpected, let's just say, because at a certain level of scale, they know how involved I was. I mean, some of them have already given me like some stock, or like have made promises that like once things are really hitting, they want to like give me like a lump sum of money. So, I mean, I'm not like banking on that, and it's like nice, but they say that because they recognize that I'm underpaid for the amount of effort and resources because the complexity of their businesses has scaled and not my profit margin.
Right. So,
right? Because it's like at the same time, it's like I've been to this it's like, this is what me and you have talked about offline, where it's like I want you to kind of understand this way. It's like at a certain point, even with these types of clients, it's like I see the potential in what they're doing and like what it can do for me, that I get to a place where it's like, look, I could keep asking them for a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, but I kind of want to share on the upside with them, which they want me to too. That's why they offered like stock or promises on bonuses or things like that. So it's like we're aligned on growing the company is kind of my point. And the first two, I was not aligned with those CEOs on growing the company. I was doing a job, and that's that's just the way it was. Because when you're charging people $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month, you're a vendor. You're not like a strategic partner, right? Like because I'm sucking money out of a lot of money out of the company, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like that, they have the money for the vendors to be a employee of sorts. But my point is kind of saying that is when it comes to profitability and long-term value, I think the key attribute is not always manage expectations. It's like, who are you making profitable? Are yourself or your client? And if you can focus on your client first, your lifetime value, in my experience, goes up kind of naturally based off that shared interest of making sure that the client is making money, and focusing and demonstrating that you care about the client making money, because then your position stays a lot. I mean, that's kind of what they're looking for, is like the irreplaceable business partners that are aligned in like shared interests that allow you to grow year over year over year over year in ways that's like hard to predict when things start compounding, like what the after effect of that is. And I'm not saying it's a mistake. I'm just saying that like when I started, obviously I totally get money's really important. And your initial instinct is how much can you sell this for? But oftentimes when you sell it for high, you wind up after 3 months, 6 months, a year, making it harder for them to continue just based off the numbers.
Yeah.
Unless you're really good at what you do, which I do believe is where I am at with my premium service for businesses, because I can staff, I have proprietary software. It's like at a certain point, you do get to a place where you are better than everybody else at it, based off of how long you've done it and like the systems you've put together that can justify to the right businesses that actually feel like it's a bargain, even at those higher price points, based off the alternative. Because like what I'm selling to now is positioning premium, like white glove management services as a distinction between hiring like an executive assistant. So it's like you could hire an executive assistant and like good luck trying to have that person manage like 6 accounts, or you could hire me as a vendor and I'm going to staff, I have workflows, I have a team. We could do it better than your executive assistant. And then you might and for these types of companies, they would hire both because they have the money. It's like, okay, well, we actually want 2 executive assistants. So we'll hire you and then we'll hire an internal one to work with you so we don't have to do it. It's like you're playing at like a different level of business at that point.
Oh, okay. Wow. Great insights, Colin. Great insights. That sounds like I think that's a shift that anyone can make. A shift from, okay, I'm not just trying to make a sale. I'm not just trying to land a customer. I'm not just trying to provide a service. I am trying to make my client profitable. I'm trying to make them make as much money as possible. And of course, with the hopes that I can become more involved in their business. So it's more of a pain to try and cut me loose than to keep me.
Yeah.
So So they're incentivized to actually keep. I think that maybe happened inadvertently with a couple of my clients. Like I've had a client now for a year and 2 months, They've had another client for maybe 2 years. Yeah, 2 years going strong. And I think I'm seeing now where that concept you're talking about, Colin, being involved in trying to help them grow their business, not just offering a service. I think
Yeah.
I'm so involved deeply in all their campaigns and marketing that it just doesn't make sense to get rid of me. It's just too much work to replace me.
Absolutely. Also, the one thing that I've kind of like understood about business, and I think you understand too, and most high level operators understand this, is that like if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, you have to go together. So you need a team. Nobody goes anywhere by themselves. But then the question becomes, how do you assemble a team of people who want to see the business grow? Because if you have a team of individuals, then you're all potentially rowing in different positions than trying to row in unison to go fast, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of like the analogy of like a rowing team. It's like the point is you all have to row together. If everybody's rowing in different places, you're just gonna like you're not gonna go anywhere. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
right. So if everybody's in unison that you want the company to grow, then the idea should be as long as you have a good relationship with the person who controls the finances, it should sprinkle down because they don't want it to stop either. They're not, I mean, obviously there's exceptions to that rule in terms of like value systems. If you have like a big ego or you think people don't deserve it, but most people that operate at a high level understand that the most important aspect of business is the team. So if the team doesn't feel like they're being taken care of, then that becomes a problem for the business. And so step one is making sure that the team is taken care of. But at the end of the day, you can want to take care of the team. If there's no money coming in, then your hands are tied.
Yeah, hands are tied, and you're roasting all over the fire. So let's look at the third point to choosing, refining, redefining your ideal customer profile. Ease of access and engagement. Can you easily reach and convert your customers? Can you do so efficiently? How do you choose the right platform for engaging your customer? Now, this whole podcast is kind of biased towards LinkedIn. But Colin, are there platforms where your marketing might be a little bit more, and by your I mean generally speaking, your marketing might be a little more appropriate on platforms other than LinkedIn? Maybe Facebook, maybe Instagram, maybe TikTok. Uh, would you say?
I mean, I think all of them are efficient. I also think in person is efficient. Showing up to the business you want to do business with, raising your hand and saying, "Can I talk to somebody?" is efficient.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, you know, but the way I kind of like think about efficiency is more about sales cycles. Understand? It always goes back to like market conditions. I've had networking calls with people who want to sell, as an example, to hospitals or government, and I won't help them because I don't believe I have any insight. Well, I know enough about how those sales cycles work, and it's a lot of who you know, not platforms. You can post on TikTok all you want, um, unless you have like something that's really going to help. Let me put it this way: if you have something that's really going to help a hospital save more money, you could show up to the hospital and probably get a meeting, right? Because they're looking for that type of stuff. Not everybody can deliver on that. So
Mm.
it's more about like understanding. But like if you have something that may or may not help, or you think a hospital would be a good target customer, trying to go on a platform to talk to people who work at the hospital who don't have the decision making to do that. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could try, but like you're going to get a lot of misses. Same
Mm.
thing for like military or selling to governments. A lot of people don't have those types of access to budgets. But I'm not saying it's bad. Like a lot of people would say that if you're trying to sell to a government, um, that's a great contract to get, right? Because the governments don't go out of business. So once you get a government contract, you're smooth sailing. But to get a government contract, I mean, they're on LinkedIn, they're on TikTok, they're just people. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like, who has control over that? You're jumping through hoops.
Yeah.
So when I view like who your ICP, who you're trying to sell to, it sucks to try to sell to people who you have to jump through all those hoops. I turn people away that are trying to do that. I'm always willing to kind of help them with copywriting or like thinking through their pitch, you know, because then it becomes like a different human game. But when it comes to like paid services for marketing, I don't like to work with those types of clients because of, I think it's the ease of access and engagement to those people is difficult. Not saying it's impossible. I just think that it's a harder sales cycle for those types of businesses.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Thanks for sharing that. The point about decision makers really stood out to me. Too many times, I think I've run campaigns and we've targeted people who don't necessarily have the budget or have the power to make a decision, you know, or influence a decision maker. So we kind of like burn resources, you know, talking to the wrong people. I mean, there's always value. You can always be nice to anyone you talk to, right? But if I guess if we can define and refine who it is that we're targeting, I think that their decision making power is definitely something to take into consideration, right? In terms of the platforms, so ideally LinkedIn I'd say is number one for targeting and marketing, but I've noticed over the past maybe about 6 or 7 months that there are no platforms that do market on TikTok. So in the same way that you'd maybe have you know, LinkedIn automation, there's no TikTok automation, you know, and there's Facebook automation, you know, not at the same level of, you know, let's say complexity, but there are people who are going after TikTokers. Like I had a client once who he's looking for TikTokers between 1,000 and 10,000 followers, right, to promote a product of his. And so I set up the automations and started reaching out, right? So, but if he had gone on LinkedIn, I don't think you'd have gotten near close to the results that he got from his campaigns, right? So like choosing the platform I think is important. And then for another type of person, maybe your services of fixing fridges and, you know, fixing washing machines and air conditioning units, I don't know if LinkedIn is the best place for that, but I'm pretty sure you could get traction on Facebook or Instagram, or if you're a videographer, you're doing photo shoots, maternity shoots, graduation photos, professional headshots, music video. I think Instagram and Facebook might be better platforms. So think about the platform, or maybe even, I don't know, maybe just show up in person, right? I don't know, if you're a decor person, maybe you show up in person and, I don't know, rearrange, get a meeting, rearrange their office right in front of their eyes and say, hey, this is what I do, invite me to your next event. So, but I never thought about it showing up in person, Colin. I actually totally forgot about that.
The way it used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Originally,
We're just direct outreach. I mean, I find that using LinkedIn as a data source at that point might be more helpful. Like TikTok, you can't grab data off of it. You're just promoting it. So that may or may not work. And like at the end of the day, like it probably will work if you're consistent in creating good content. But LinkedIn as a data source to be able to extract decision makers and send them an email, direct outreach, showing up, understanding what companies are available, and then seeing where their headquarters are. Like, I mean, that stuff I think still works, especially if you have a winning offer.
Yeah. Yeah, and also if you're just starting out, heck, put on a suit, put on your power jacket, look great, put on a great dress, ladies, and hit the streets in your city. Like show up and go around to offices, get to know the office attendant, get to know the lady at the front desk or the guy, and come around, get information for the owners. As I think because people are relying so much on social media now and so much on ads that we're almost it's almost like showing up in person is a new form of outreach when it's not. It was the original form, but because it's so rarely used, I would say, or it's being used less and less, being displaced by online methods, I think there's some kind of novelty that is present in showing up in person, you know? I think
Yeah.
it says something more about you that, oh, you could have tried calling, you could have sent DMs on LinkedIn or sent emails, but you chose to show up in person. You're either just starting off, desperate, or you're just amazing. You're really going all out. So how can we incorporate all three of those? No, not the desperation, not that part, but showing up in person while using online means. Do Should we maybe send something in the mail if it's out of reach? You can't show up physically. Maybe send an actual letter, a handwritten letter or note in the
Yeah.
mail.
I feel like that's a whole other conversation, maybe for a
Oh
different.
my gosh, week three.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Week three. Pursue. Nice, love it. This- So the ideal customer profile. Three questions to ask: is there a problem solution fit? What's the long term value? And how are you reaching these persons? What's the platform? What's your process? If you want advice, if you want feedback on any of these three things in choosing your ideal customer profile or refining it, then you can message us. Reach out to Colin on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me as well on LinkedIn. Join the Pursue networking group. This is where we talk about these things and we'll provide guidance. We absolutely will. All right. So, Colin, let's kind of um, shift gears a little bit.
I feel like we should like wrap up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying. I want to keep these to an hour. We could always kind of save different segments. I feel like otherwise it's just going to go. I feel like a little too much
Yeah.
for one day.
Okay. Gotcha. Because I'm loaded, guys. I'm loaded, and I love these conversations. But unfortunately, you'll have to wait until next week. I'm sorry. Check out these recaps in the Pursue Networking group as well as on the Pursue Networking page. Download the app, test it out, try it out. No credit card needed. You get 30 days free trial. And when that runs out, hit us up. Let us know your feedback. How you might get a free license. Who knows? I'm not promising you, but or you can purchase 10, 20, 30 licenses for your entire team if it makes sense. So we're available. Let's chat and see you on the next episode of Office Hours.